What up guys, SuperMetal983 here bringing you another album review, and this time we've got some metalcore for you to check out today. If you like your riffs and your catchy choruses, then this is definitely a release that you need to check out. But yeah, I'm going to be reviewing the new album from the band Landmarks entitled Lost in the Waves. This is released under a Rising Empire. Now, if you're not too familiar with Landmarks, they are a metalcore band hailing from France, I believe. And I've been a fan of these guys for quite a while now, ever since I heard their debut album, which came out in, I believe, 2015, if I'm not mistaken, entitled Hollow, which is an absolutely solid album. Make sure you check that one out if you haven't already. But I was more of a fan, shall I say, and more acquainted with their last album, which came out in 2018, entitled Fantasy. Now that album, my mate actually turned us on to that album because I did love Hollow, but I never got the time to actually listen to Fantasy, and he recommended us that it was an absolutely solid album in modern metalcore. And what more can I say? It is an absolutely fantastic album, and quite frankly, I've listened to that album quite a few times, probably more so than I have Hollow, to be honest. But yeah, both albums are absolutely killer, and it always makes us wonder what's the next step for these guys. And now they are releasing have released a new album entitled Lost in the Waves. So yeah, it's 10 tracks and runs around 32 minutes in length. And I have to say, ever since this album dropped about a week and a half ago, I have listened to this album on repeat, man. Like, this is an absolutely incredible piece of modern metalcore. I would link it more along the same sort of lines of the likes of Paralysis, for example. If you're into that sort of thing, but it's kind of like got some little bit of techy, genty sort of feels in there, but it is still a riff fest and a very good time album with some catchy choruses and punchy breakdowns and punchy riffs. Then this is definitely a record for you. It's got a lot of a likability factor, and it's sticking to me a lot more than it did Fantasy and Hollow. Like, Fantasy and Hollow, as I said, were absolutely incredible albums, but this one is really sticking its nail into me so far. I mean, I can't stop listening to this album because every time I listen to it, I find something new to love and something new to sing along to, and that's quite a statement, because I feel like this is a very catchy and infectiously catchy album. Because when you've listened to it once all the way through, say for example, for me, when I first heard it, I was going to work or on my way to work, and as soon as I got into work for that shift, I was singing the lyrics left, right and centre. I fell in love with this album. Like, generally listening to the singles that they dropped leading up to this album, I was listening to them a lot as well, and those are very standout tracks, if you ask me. I mean, my particular favourite tracks would be the title track. And I first heard that single drop because for some reason it didn't come up on my radar. Don't know why. But or the single that they released before that, the title track. I can't remember what it's called. Anyway, was a drum cover. Adam Bjork, I think his name is. He's a drummer on YouTube. Excellent. And his cover, I really enjoyed the intricate drum work that was on there because he was playing it. But then I heard this, like, as if beat down sort of breakdown, and I was like, ooh, that is very interesting, and it really works, and it gives a little bit of a different dynamical sort of dynamic attention to detail sort of thing to the album. It gives it a whole new breath of freshness. Like, I've heard a couple of beat down sort of riffs here or there in metalcore, but that stumpy sort of riff was just hit a certain spot in me, and I was like, that riff is going to stick with me for the rest of the year. And honestly, it's become my favourite song on this album. And another song that I would say is the closing track, which I can't stop listening to, which is the song Paralysis, which is more of a more sorrow-filled song and a bit more eased back and more, how can you describe it, like kind of, in fact those are the only ways to describe it. It's more of an emotional driven song, but it is still very powerful and infectiously catchy to listen to. Like, it made me goosebumps stand on end when that last track, when the sombre sort of feels and the feels are real sort of moments came in on that last track. I was like, ooh, that is just and then when it concluded to the album, I was like, well, that was an experience, because you're starting off with that really heaviness of Lost in a Wave, and then closing with that very powerful outro of Paralysis. It just fits so well, and it makes the entire album just seem complete. I mean, throughout the entire course of this album, there's some great moments in here, including on the song, I believe it's Visage and Visage, I believe how it's pronounced, track 4, and track 6, I think it is, where there's a bit more rapping segments in there, which took me a bit surprisingly, because I didn't expect that sort of thing to come from Landmarks. But man, they worked so well, and the floors were just impressive. It kind of reminded us of a bit of an Eminem sort of approach. Actually, no, I'd say maybe a bit more like Hobson more than anything else. It really made us think about that a little bit. I know that's a bit of a weird combination to think, with metalcore and rap Hobson, but it's coming more into metalcore influence. I mean, Envisions did it, for example, and obviously best known Attila, so yeah, to add those sort of elements really breaks them out into a new market to the listener to absorb, and I really think it adds to their overall sound and makes this album just that little bit more, has a little bit more of an X factor to it. And that, as you know, I've said this before in the past, when I find an album, there has to be an X factor that makes it stand out, and the rap segment in the middle just definitely broke it up and made us go, I'll see what you're doing, Landmarks, and I really appreciate it a lot. The production wise as well, it's a very, especially on the drum work, it's very punchy and pummeling sounding drums, like the thickness and the poundiness of that snare alone, the way it sounds like a thicker snare, like you would expect more of a snappy sort of snare with this sort of overall production, but it really adds to the overall aesthetic of giving it a bit more of a pounding factor and a bit more intensity behind it. And then the guitar and bass work on this album is absolutely incredible. The riffs, they will make you want to headbang. And then also the little gentler elements that kind of link us a little bit to Polaris, and maybe a bit of Periphery as well, and maybe some All's Between the Buried and Me in there for good measure, like some of the more techier, gentler sort of thing, kind of really modernising it, but it still sounds really catchy and very interesting sound. I feel this is a very interesting but very remarkable sounding album. And then this isn't a rap vocal album. This is it's got everything across the board. It's got your very clean singing. You've got your half scream, kind of like Architect sort of vibes, and a bit of Polaris, like as I said. And you've got your mid-range screams, your high-end screams, but then you've got some like really monstrous lows that literally come out of nowhere, and sometimes it's during a breakdown and they just get a little bit lower, and you just think, that is an extremely intense range that this guy has, and it really makes the album very interesting, because the minute you listen to it, it's not like it's all over the place, like avant-garde in any way. It just, the vocal abilities is just absolutely incredible to behold, and the lyrics, like as I said, are infectiously catchy. Like, you will be singing these lyrics throughout the day. When you first hear this album, if you haven't listened to this album, you need to listen to it. You will be singing it straight after. And if you have heard this album, you'll know exactly what I'm on about, because this is such an infectiously catchy album. And I knew this album was going to be very, very good. It was one of the albums that when I first heard Lost in the Waves, I knew this album was going to be something that I could review on the channel. So yeah, this is an absolutely incredible album, from beginning to end, absolutely incredible. I would say highlight tracks are definitely Lost in a Wave and Paralysed. Always the seventh track, my bad, is another absolutely belter track. Make sure you hear that one as well. Rainfall and Silent. In fact, across the entire board, this album from beginning to end is so enjoyable to listen to, and definitely has a chance of being in the top 25 when it comes to the end of 2021, which, dare I say it, I hope I can see them live. I know they're doing a UK and European run with, I think it's Resolve or Stepson. It's one of those two. So I'm hoping I do get to see them live, because I would love to hear these tracks live. And then when that beatdown kicks in, Lost in a Wave, I'm going to be throwing some punches. But yeah, I hope you enjoyed this video. Make sure you check out Landmarks and their new album, Lost in the Waves. It's absolutely incredible metalcore, modern metalcore. If you're a fan of Polaris, Periphery, Between the Buried and Me, or even While She Sleeps, then this is definitely an album for you to check out. Absolutely incredible stuff. Make sure you check it out. And for an overall score though, nearly forgot there. And for an overall score though, I'm going to give this a solid 8.5 out of 10. Absolutely incredible release, and the more I listen to it, the more I fall in love, and you will do as well. Absolutely incredible. And I'll see you until the next video, and remember, stay metal, and I'll see you later.